For a man who was hailed as the king, Eric Cantona was quite the character. In his prime, he lit up several clubs with his brilliance on the pitch and terrified more with his antics on it. Old Trafford was his seat, and the world was his playground. The Premier League would bear close witness to the greatness and wildness of Eric Cantona for many years, and his stories never gets old. Let's dish you some. A shock move from direct rivals is not easy to pull off, but trust Eric Cantona. The king pulled it off effortlessly after joining Leeds in January 1992 and helping the team claim the English League crown over Sir Alex Ferguson's Reds. With Cantona's instant brilliance, Leeds rolled over their opposition, acquiring 13 points in an unbeaten final 5-game stretch of the season. But it was not without reason. Leeds United had acquired Cantona's signature based on a recommendation of his fellow Frenchman and legendary Ballon d'Or winner Michel Platini after Liverpool passed on him. It had clearly paid off, but the connection between Cantona and the Peacocks was still weak. There was no fluent French speaker among the squad, and Cantona had come to England from his country with a certain reputation of hot-headedness. An impending nightmare awaited the manager, known as the disciplinarian of Yorkshire, Howard Wilkinson. The manager advised Cantona to find a new club as he just didn't fit in with Howard's values and system in the locker room. Leeds were shocked when he found out that Old Trafford came calling for the Frenchman's signature. Alex Ferguson knew the brilliant Cantona was just meant for Manchester United. His genius on the field went hand in hand with a certain swagger that only kings had. Plus, it was a big blessing after the club had missed out on Alan Shearer and David Hurst in the transfer market. The Kings' arrival at the Old Trafford catapulted the Red Devils to the first-ever Premier League title in the 1992-1993 season. He was no Alan Shearer, but his 20 goals and assists certainly did more than enough to ward the drought spell off Old Trafford. For Cantona, it meant he was the first player to ever win consecutive titles with 2 different clubs. But for Manchester United, it meant much more. They had become the champions of England for the first time in 26 years. The ultimate footballer that United faithfuls had been waiting for had finally arrived, dripping from head to toe in a glow that radiated throughout Old Trafford, with his shirt collar up and pure genius on the ball that sent the crowd into a frenzy. The king was a great leader who not only awed the fans, but was adored by them. The next season, Cantona scored 25 goals in all competitions to secure United's first double in ages and was deservedly rewarded with the 1993-94 PFA Player of the Year award. But even his crowning season had some hiccups along the way. In November 1993, Manchester United made a UEFA Champions League trip to Galatasaray, where Cantona received a red card from the referee he later described as bought. But the night would unravel in the tunnel when Cantona was attacked by a cop. After this incident, his teammates retreated to the dressing room. But not Eric Cantona. The king was fired up and threatened to beat up the cop. Another Manchester United legend, Roy Keane, wrote in his autobiography that it took the combined efforts of the manager and many players to restrain him. But that was just one of the bunch. He would receive multiple red card suspensions that season, especially after incidents against Swindon and Arsenal. With all the road bumps, the Kings United still managed to complete the double. The next season, the Red Devils were prepped up to win a 3rd consecutive league title, and Cantona was in the middle of the mix as always. But a trip to Crystal Palace's Selhurst Park Stadium in January 1995 put an unforgettable dent on both Cantona and United's new golden age. Although the match had ended in a draw, the match was far from boring. The king was subject to multiple tackles during the first half and received no protection from the referee. Even Sir Alex Ferguson had an outburst telling the referee to do his job and punish the rough play on Cantona. 3 minutes after halftime, he retaliated with a bad tackle on Richard Shaw and was sent down the tunnel with a red card. On his way out, he got taunted by the home crowd who were clearly not on his side, but the next act would change his life forever. A 20-year-old Crystal Palace supporter, Matthew Simmons, ran down the stairs to jeer at the retreating Cantona. The king had taken enough and promptly made the wrong side of history that afternoon. He let a kung fu kick fly into Simmons' face before landing a few more hooks with his fist. You might wonder what Simmons said to make him so mad. F back to French, you French bastard. Well, what followed was an interesting press conference from Eric Cantona. The king said just a few words. When the seagulls follow the trawler, it is because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. We can tell you are not impressed. Neither was the football world. It was a flat-face fall for even a guy like Eric Cantona. The disciplinary committee duly punished him with an 8-month suspension. Simmons' testimony was that he shouted, "Off, off, off! It's an early bath for you, Mr. Cantona." The case was presented in the criminal court, where Cantona was initially slapped with a 2-month sentence for assault, but later had his sentence appealed to 120 hours of community service. But that was not his first brush with the law. Many years before this incident, he had scored an incredible goal from 25 yards out to secure an European spot for Auxerre. The following season, he made a horror kung fu tackle on an opponent and was sanctioned with a 3-month suspension. Even his dream move to Marseille did not make him any calmer. He would hoof the ball into the stadium crowd and throw his shirt at the referee in a friendly just because he got substituted. He was indefinitely suspended by Marseille and made a loan move to Bordeaux, where he got in a fight with his teammate, Jean-Claude Lemot, and threw boots in his face. Interestingly, Cantona was still quite the baller on the pitch, which convinced Nîmes Olympique to buy him. At Nîmes, he got banned for 3 games after throwing the ball at a referee, and when he had to face the disciplinary committee, Cantona just called each and every one of the committee idiots to their face. The king was just too gangster. Now facing another rough time with the law, the king was not having the best of years. That season, Eric Cantona's absence was felt as United finished as runners-up in the 94-95 Premier League, just a single point behind Blackburn Rovers. They also lost to the FA Cup final to Everton and finished the season trophyless. Meanwhile, Cantona's issue got even worse as the FA threatened to extend his suspension over a closed-doors friendly. It seemed to be the end of the road for the Frenchman in Manchester, as he handed in a transfer request with Inter Milan waiting in the wings. But Alex Ferguson's trip to Paris convinced Cantona to stay. The Scottish legend called it one of the more worthwhile acts he had ever performed at Manchester United, and boy did it pay off. Cantona would lead United to another double the following season, with several incredible goals throughout the season and a sumptuous 18-yard volley against Liverpool in the FA Cup final. This time, he was supported by an incredible supporting cast made up of some kids from the club's Carrington Academy, including David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, and Gary Neville. The Frenchman had successfully bridged eras and guided United into the golden age. Playing for France was not a different front, as Eric Cantona scored 20 goals and 45 caps. Of course, the drama followed him. Soon after his debut, he was dropped by the national team manager, Henri Michel, and the king did not hold back in lashing Michel, who he called a bag of shit on national television. This led to a year-long international ban, but poor results led to Michel's sacking, and the new manager, Michael Platini, reinstated the king to the country's forefront. Interestingly, not even Platini could stop the drama to come for years, as the king's stock hit rock bottom after the Selhurst Park incident, which led to his final suspension. The national team was free from Cantona, but not the drama. In the build-up to Manchester United versus Juventus, Cantona called the country's future World Cup winning coach, Didier Deschamps, a water carrier who was no more than a common player you could find anywhere. His contribution to Sir Alex Ferguson's side went beyond the numbers, even though the numbers were impressive. For 6 seasons, Cantona scored in every other game for a total of 82 in the red shirt and served goals on a platter with an equally impressive tally of 62 assists. With his goal contributions and swagger came 4 Premier League titles and 2 FA Cup trophies. And the collar stayed up. He was the king, brimming with confidence, swagger, and the X factor that a club like Manchester United needed. For United faithful, Eric Cantona did not just hold the standard high, but he became the standard. The king played his heart out every time he stepped out on the pitch and demanded everybody do the same. Good Lord, they loved him for it. Even the old highlights cannot help us grasp how charming the one truly was, and why they loved him so much. And why not? Moments like his 25-yard volley against Arsenal or another 18-yard volley against Liverpool comes to mind. He was just too good. So good that an early retirement at age 30 did not faze him. At that age, he had inspired the Reds for a lifetime and achieved so much. Cantona was voted as United's greatest ever player by the magazine Inside United and named by Pelé in the coveted FIFA 100 list. The king set his sights on bigger and better things. In his retirement, he ventured into beach soccer, where found love as he led France to the 2004 Euro Beach Soccer League and 2005 Beach Soccer World Cup titles. The king would also venture into the movie world by playing the part of an ambassador in the 1998 movie Elizabeth, but his role in the 2013 French movie The Stallion gathered more interest, where he wore a prosthetic for his member. Cantona has since rebuffed the allegations of starring in a soft porn flick, insisting that the movie was too much of an artistic masterpiece to be considered pornography. But he would post an intriguing video of a man breaking an egg with his members some years later. You can say he found that interesting, and the beefs keep rolling in. The king surely has enemies from his past, but he found a new one in Neymar and his entourage. During the 2018-19 second-leg tie between United and PSG, he and his friends got into a brawl with Neymar's dad, who felt the crew had been disrespecting his son by taunting him at their stadium box. Cantona took it one step higher by trolling Neymar on his Instagram. Some things just never change. One thing is for sure, there will only be one Eric Cantona. We will never see anything like him again.